Good morning, everyone. How are you? Everybody raise their hand if they're a realtor. I can see you. But anyhow, today is a chance for me to introduce you to what you really need to know about property taxes. A little bit about my background. By the way, my name is Ray Holtzapple, and I'm a real estate broker and run a small company with my wife. And I'm also a professional engineer and used to be a financial officer for a company. They used to call me the cheap financial officer instead of the chief financial officer. So anyhow, all that being said, let's go ahead and talk about property tax protesting. And one of the things that I want to do is to kind of hold questions towards the end of the initial part of the presentation. That way we can get through this and then answer your questions. We really look forward to getting them. Let's see how I can do this. This is my first webinar, so bear with me. Oh, when you go to protest, we all have great expectations. I mean, this is one of those things where we get information together. We think that we have every answer in there, and we're going to go in and just make them give me a reduction in my property tax. That's not the case. I hate to break it to you. And let's talk about who makes the rules. And I'm going to introduce you to a little bit of information on background, because if you know where it all comes from, you can better handle how you handle it. So state legislature, they make the rules. The state constitution, property tax code. It gets amended every year that the legislation's in session. If you're not sleeping well right now, it's because they are in session and about ready to wind things down, and we don't know where things are coming from. There's some very interesting bills going through there. State controller sets the policies. Glenn Hegler is a friend of the realtors, and we get to talk to him, and he has asked multiple times for input from TAR, or Texas Realtors as they now call themselves, and HAR. And in fact, I've had a couple chats with him over the years myself. Good guy, really listens to us. State Comptroller monitors the appraisal districts, the CAD enforcement. Under Glenn, there's a person that really is in charge of that. The CAD applies the rules. Every CAD interprets the rules kind of differently. Okay. State Constitution. Article 8 of the Texas Constitution, taxation and revenue. It's an interesting read. It's about 10 pages long, and it talks about sales tax. It talks about ad valorem taxes, business personal property taxes. I would, if you're having trouble going to sleep one night, pull that up and look at it. I think it's an interesting read. Sets of requirements for action by the legislature. There's usually more action than we want. They can't leave anything alone. Taxation must be equal and uniform. That is a quote right out of the Constitution, and that's what drives everything on property taxes. There's no state level property taxes. Everything's at the local level, both assessment and collection. The rules changed. The system changed dramatically in 1979. Representative Pito basically introduced legislation to centralize the appraisal districts within each county. Now, there's a couple counties out in West Texas that don't have enough people to even have an appraisal district, but they get helped out by the neighboring large county. But just about every county has its own central appraisal district. And before that, what you had was, let's say, HISD and the city of Houston and Harris County. They each had their own assessors. So you may end up with the same piece of property with 3 different valuations each year. It added to the challenge of fixing things. And you used to have to go in front of each of the taxing districts to go ahead and get relief. Well, it was a great system, but it's a system that didn't work. So the new system is much better. You go to a central place. You go ahead and present your case if you want to protest, and you have one appraisal for everything. Now, let's talk about how the world is viewed. your house as you see it, nice bungalow in the Heights, okay? The buyer does see it a little bit differently than you do. Your mortgage lender, they even have a harder problem understanding what you're trying to tell them. And then the appraiser that appraises your real estate deal really sees it and gives you a hard time. I think this was during Harvey. I'm not mistaken. You got the flood there. But now the appraisal district, a different animal. That's how they see your property. So anyhow, when you're done laughing, let's go. Important dates. We just passed one of the most important dates, and that is most of the appraisal districts go ahead and have all their initial notices that they can send out done by April 15th. So that means that by May 15th, you have to have had a chance to look at things and decide that you want to protest or not protest. My suggestion is you protest every year, and the reason why you'll see later. So if your property has not been noticed yet, which is quite a bit of properties in Harris County because of Harvey and other unique problems that's going on, they will be noticed, and then you have 30 days from that date that you get the letter, the date on the letter, to protest. That's important. So if it's amazing how many people call my wife and I and say, they haven't noticed this yet. What do we do? How can we protest? And it's a fact that we just have to explain to them, hang on, we'll keep an eye on it, and you can do that for your clients. So anyhow, moving right along, what happens if you don't pay your taxes? I cannot tell you the number of people that don't pay their taxes. And what happens is July 1, the sky kind of falls. They turn it over to a collection agency, and you get a 20% penalty right off that you cannot get rid of. So you got the normal penalty, you got interest in penalty, and you got another 20% on top of it. So you got to encourage people to pay their taxes. Now, an interesting thing about tax bills, you may or may not be aware of, they are not required to send you a tax bill by law. It is your responsibility to know that you have to pay taxes and know what that tax bill is. So it's a courtesy when you get that tax bill in the mail. I mean, it's not much of a courtesy, you know, you really didn't want it, but you got it. But if you don't get it, say by December 15th, you better start looking around. And you can go online. Now, HCAD easily puts the tax bill online, and you can go in and go out of their site and go into the tax assessor collector's site and pull that up. But that's an important date that a lot of people don't understand. And then the other ones are tax rates are set by the taxing entities somewhere around September. Some of them actually set them in July, which is kind of interesting. I'm still trying to figure out why every entity doesn't have the same requirement on setting their tax things and setting their budgets at the same time. But the legislature hasn't seen fit to play with that one yet. Tax bills are mailed on or about October 1. Last year they were really late because of Harvey. Fort Bend, Montgomery County, a different world from Harris County, okay? Neither CAD sets an informal hearing time for you. You have to go request it. Once you protest, Montgomery County, you have the ability to go online and get your evidence. Fort Bend, you have to pay for it. $5 for residential and $25 for commercial. And compared to HCAD and what they give you, it's a couple pieces of paper with nothing on it. One of the most important ones you can get is the land map that shows what every piece of land parcel around you is being valued at. I find that to be the most important one and can really help you, especially if you're doing commercial or industrial land. Let's see here. Informal. You wait and see what wait to see the CAD appraiser. You also show up the day of the schedule of the ARB, and you can go ahead. I did one last year. It was kind of interesting. I was asking for $300,000 off the informal would give me $150 off. So guess where I went? I went to the ARB and got every penny I asked for. The ARB hearing is set and you are notified. CAD evidence package should be available to you 14 days ahead of the ARB. That's a requirement by law. If you do not show up or provide an affidavit indicating your valuation, then the value is set by the CAD stands. That's important. I just went through this discussion this morning with one of my clients, and we decided not to protest. There's no way I can get $300,000 off. He fixed his house up too much, and I told him it looks too good now. It's ready to go on the market, so we can't protest because I can't succeed, and I'm not going to spend his money. Limited ability to continue to protest after the ARB here. Harris County, different world. Just as a point of full disclosure, for a little over 4 years, I represented the city of Houston on the HCAD board of directors. There's 6 people that are representing different taxing districts that sit there. We could do a couple things. Number one, we could hire and fire the chief appraiser. And I worked hard to change chief appraisers. I'll just leave it at that. And we are able to approve the budget on behalf of our taxing district we represent. And then we're also able to make suggestions on policy. That's it. Now, last legislative session, they tried to make it an elected office. Now, who in their right mind is going to spend thousands of dollars to get elected to be only able to do those things? So that kind of died. And it's kind of interesting to see what the legislature does try to do sometimes. The deal is, you'll go ahead and protest. You will be given information. They'll send you a letter in the mail, and they'll give you an I-file number. And that I-file is your evidence package that you're going to have to refute. You can also do an I-settle or go to an informal meeting. This is important, and I'm going to say it a couple times probably. I-settle, they don't give you much, but if you weren't going to protest and they give you something, I guess that's worth something, okay? I-settle it. If you I-settle, you lose the ability to sit down with a HCAD appraiser and do an informal, or any CAD appraiser. If successful at either of those levels, accept the value, sign the form provided, and go home happy. If not happy, a formal ARB hearing will be scheduled no sooner than 15 days. At the ARB hearing, you're provided 15 minutes for the hearing, total. Agents, like I am, get 10 minutes. So I guess we're supposed to talk faster and have our act together more than other people. I'm not sure why they give us less time. If you do not show up or provide an affidavit indicating your valuation, then the value is set at by the CAD stands. That's kind of important. An interesting fact, any residential property over $1 million that's represented by an agent automatically goes to the ARB. And the reason that is because there were several tax consultants out there that would never go to the informal. They had all this manpower and time spent setting all these meetings up, and nobody would show up. So believe it or not, I was on the board of directors when we set the policy. Forget it. If they don't use it, we won't make it available to them. There's ways of getting around that. I've had to figure that out because I created a problem and I had to work around it. So I've been able to do that. It's kind of fun. What does the ARB do? Okay. With the evidence you present and the CAD evidence, the ARB make a determination of the value for the current tax year. With respect to HCAD, the board of directors says reevaluate every year because there is a tendency in Harris County to follow the oil industry, to follow this, go up and down, and they don't want to get really out of whack. If you go to Dallas, they really evaluate 1/3 of the properties a year. By law, every 3 years, a property must be revalued. So it's one of those things where every CAD does it differently. you'll see things stay the same for 2 or 3 years, and then somebody wakes up at the CAD and starts changing values, normally up. I haven't seen many go down. Although this year I've seen a couple of the sales comps and the equity comps where the valuation has gone down, which will help me in my presentation. That why are you choosing things? If mine goes up, you show me comps that are going down. Help. Okay. They listen to both presentations and majority stands. 2 out of 3 works, and it's kind of interesting. The chair normally is not supposed to go first because they're the final decision maker. I had a couple cases last year where the chair went first, and everybody says, "Oh, me too, me too." So you really didn't get any feedback as to what the other members thought of your pricing. I haven't seen that yet this year. If you're satisfied, you're done. Oh boy. Okay, you go home and you smile and your client smiles. If not, you can file a lawsuit against the CAD. There's an interesting interesting bill that's floating around. Chapter 41 is the tax code. If this gets passed, it's going to be a disaster for everyone. It says if there's a technical glitch, either by the chief appraiser, by the ARB, or the CAD, then they can go back and open things up. It doesn't say what, how, when. It is a terrible bill. I hope it doesn't get passed because it's going to make our lives as realtors horrible, and it's going to make the lives of the CADs horrible too, and it's going to make attorneys very happy. Okay? So if you can't, you file your lawsuit, you go to arbitration. I recommend arbitration. They seem to work pretty good. But again, you as a realtor can be an expert witness for arbitration. I changed my hat from a tax agent to an expert witness when I go into arbitration, and I usually get every penny. I did an arbitration this year where we saved somebody $2.25 million on a $4.5 million property. Saved him $50,000, $56,000 worth of taxes. I charged him by the hour to go in and do that. He's happy. I'm happy. He told me to raise my rates after that. It was kind of funny. But anyhow, it's one of those things where you can really do something for your clients. And that's what it's all about, okay? We want you to be able to help your clients because guess what's the biggest bill they have every year? It's not the mortgage. It's not repairs, not electric, gas, or anything else, or phone. It is the tax bill. So, and that's where most people went into bankruptcy or foreclosure during the financial downturn, is these couples that were bought brand new homes didn't realize that their tax bill was going to go crazy. And I think it's up to us as realtors to make sure they understand the tax system and what's going on. Back to basics. Okay, develop your evidence package. Description of the property should be studied, correct, in square footage. I had one place in the Heights that had 2 houses on one lot. And it was fairly easy to fix, but guess what? It went on 2 years. And the guy paid tax bills for 2 years. And if there's a mess up like that, you can go back if the taxes reduce by 30% over the previous year, you can go back and get it corrected. You can go back up to 5 years. I do a couple of those a year where things are just not right. Nobody picked up on it. I have one that they have the wrong property address on it. That was kind of interesting. Everything else is correct, but the property address is wrong. So improvement, repairs necessary to be the same condition as the CAD comparables. Now, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but you really need to evaluate what the sales are, what the equity are, because if you don't, you can't rebut somebody's evidence. This is a court of law. That's the way you got to treat it. You just can't waltz in there saying, oh, I've got all this great evidence. You've got to go in and say, this is what they say. This is how I view it as real life. These are the repairs that we got to do. Roofs, foundations, air conditioning, water damage, rotted windows. These are the repairs we have to do in order to make our property that we're protesting equal to these wonderful properties that they say that HAR has. And you go and look at the pictures, and I've never seen so many fancy houses in all my life compared to my bungalow that is about ready to be torn down. Oh, by the way, torn down. There is a term that you'll never hear, or they don't want you to know about. It's called economic misimprovement. Economic misimprovement means that when you go to sell the house, it will be torn down. Where I live, all my value is in the lot, okay? And my value is $100 on my house, on the improvement. Now, that's not available to everybody, but guess what $100 is? You have to have $100 in order to homestead your house. And they will go ahead and they may carve some money out of the land, but they still give you $100 because at least they know enough to do that and not mess you up. But a lot of the appraisers don't understand that $100. I have to educate them. Land. There are factors applied to land to correct it for topography, square footage, correction, economic factors. Those include traffic, flooding, railroad tracks, power lines. They need to be properly applied. Big problem right now, anything along the bayou. I have 9 properties in front of HCAD for factor evaluation. In fact, I'll just tell you this. I'm meeting with the chief appraiser tomorrow afternoon and deputy chief appraiser to talk about this very thing. There's a policy in place that I've been told at that level that you should be able to discuss land and you should be able to discuss factors at an informal, formal arbitration, mediation, district court. Nobody understands that within the organization. A perfect example of this is the other day, there was a property in West U that needed to be evaluated. It's a smaller than normal lot on a corner, busy street. 2 of the sales and 1 of the equity comps were similar sized properties, corner, busy street. They had 0.6 and 0.8 factors applied to the land. And that means over there, land is valued at $130 a square foot. So it would be 80% and 65% of that value is what would be the land portion of their appraised value. Very significant, especially on houses that there's not much value in the improvement. On top of that, she can't build anything but a postage stamp size house. So she has a much smaller house by 1,000 to 1,200 square feet than anybody else. I asked the appraiser to call the deputy chief appraiser. She kept ignoring me, and finally I just turned to the chair of the ARB and asked him to instruct her to do that, and he did. And so she called her supervisor first. We sat around for 15 minutes, so much for the 10 minutes for an agent. And by the way, that appraisal discussion took 45 minutes total. I don't listen to what they say. I present my case and let them throw me out. But it's one of those things where her supervisor got back to her after 15 minutes and said, oh, unless we have a formal memo or email in the file on this property, we can't discuss it. Well, that's not the policy. So tomorrow afternoon, I'm in to talk to the chief appraiser and deputy chief appraiser, who are actually good friends of mine. And we're going to try to see if we can set this policy. And if that's not the policy they want, then take it off the table. Don't have it. You can't work with something that isn't there. So equity analysis. HCAD provides analysis of 5 properties. Previous years, it's been 9 properties in a funny table. Now the table looks identical to the table you're used to seeing in the iFile for sales. Much more detailed, much more difficult to rebut. Because guess what? We don't know the inside of the houses. We can't go to HAR.com and look inside and see the pictures because they're equity. They weren't for sale. Now, a couple of them I can go back when I go into the archives and look way back It may be some pictures and stuff there, but it takes a lot of extra effort, and I do that on over $1 million properties, but not ones under that. It's not cost effective for the owner. Developing your evidence package. You must be prepared to rebut the CAD evidence. This is why I say it's a court of law. Package must be complete and concise. Have detailed repairs, those that affect the marketability of the property. That's why it's so important to go in and look at the pictures on har.com of the sales, and they will give you a list of all kinds of confidential sales. If you see something in that confidential sales, I usually go back about a year, but not much more than that, because there's usually enough of them there. Some of these deals, I have a couple this year so far that have no sales comps. So they come up with some equity comps. I had one the other day, I had no sales nor equity comps. It's basically a project that has been abandoned since October of 2017. So they really worked hard and helped me on that one. So that was kind of interesting. But you never know what you're going to get until you see the evidence package. Have great pictures, interior, exterior, and especially the repair areas. If you have rotted windows, take a picture of rotted windows. Okay, take a picture of bad wood. Remember, hardy is now what most people do when they remodel a home. So really look at the pictures on HCAD, and the information on HCAD to see what kind of siding you have, and look at the pictures on har.com. Go out and drive these. Take pictures. Try not to be viewed as a stalker. That doesn't work, and don't even try to go on the property if you don't have to, because you can get in trouble. Visit the comparables, visit the equity properties, pictures, pictures, pictures. You bring 4 copies with you, 4 for the ARB, 3 for the ARB, and 1 for the CAD person. You don't have to bring 4 sets of pictures. 1 for the CAD person and 1 for the people to share. I usually jokingly say I got to watch my budget. Okay, I can't afford all these colored pictures, but I usually have between 10 and 15 pictures, and they look at them. What's new this year? As I said, the equity properties are now on a table like the sales comps. You should always go first to rebut the HCAD or anybody's evidence. Last legislative session, they changed the law that you can have a choice to go first or let the CAD present their evidence first. Well, since you're in a rebuttal position, you want to present their evidence the way you think you look at it. Don't let them just present the evidence. And I think I want to stop here for a second and just kind of tell you the Central Appraisal District's point of view. Sitting on the board and actually ran the model, no board member had ever done that. And by the way, every board member that I was with, not one of them but myself had ever protested their taxes. Like I said to them, and I wasn't very kind about it, how can you run a business when you don't know what the business is? Okay, I offered to even go in with them and show them how to do it. And I don't know, it's an interesting world out there. But I feel sorry for the appraiser that you sit with. Very few of them have ever seen the package before they open it up. And there they are defending something that they don't know about, and they don't have time to listen to you. So that's one of the reasons why you go first and rebut their evidence, because you're helping them go through the evidence package in front of them. Hint, hint. Okay? And you go through each one of the properties, and I have something a little bit later. I'll show you some tables I developed for this year because of the, especially because of the equity stuff. It took me a while to figure possibly a way, and it's been working pretty good as far as the presentation for equity. I settle does away with the face-to-face informal. That's important, and your clients don't understand that. That's really one of the things that you can help them with, and that's part of the history of why things are what they are. And you really need to be prepared. Do your research. You got two great sources here. Also, Google Maps are good. And there is a thing, and we'll pull it up real quick. I think I'm pretty well done with the formal presenting your evidence, 15 minutes. You got 7 or 8 minutes to board. Make sure the board is not being bored. Okay. I have in the past had to wake up one member. It was kind of embarrassing for him, and it wasn't for me though. Watch them to see if you're losing their attention. They're supposed to be listening to you. Don't keep repeating yourself like I am on this because they want to hear it. A tax agent that does things for some of the larger firms will go in and they have 50 to 100 tax protests in one day with the same board. And I get so tired of hearing them say, what will you give me on this? What will you give me on this? I had one guy I worked with that walked in with a little partial sheet of yellow paper, no evidence, with a price on it. And that was what he was trying to get. I've never seen, and this week, no, was it this week? Yeah, this week, I was sitting at HCAD ready to go in and protest 2 properties, and these 3 couples were sitting around me, and I was talking to this tax agent, and the tax agent left, and they said, can I talk to you? They came in unprepared. One had their appointment notice. That was it. Now, there are all kinds of information on HCAD that tells you how to protest your taxes. There used to be some videos that I made them put on when I went on the board. I don't know if they're still floating around or not, but we had 12 videos for people in different languages to help them. Language should not be a barrier. HCAD, I know for sure, speaks 32 different languages within the building. So it should never be a problem. And all you have to do is ask for that person. The people that do the worst in protesting are people that English is not their primary language. It's a shame. But they will bend over backwards to help you. Now, rebut. No new evidence can be presented. Once you present your evidence and the appraisal district presents their, you can't come up with something like, oh, I forgot to talk to you about the equity properties. They said, sorry, you can't introduce that. And that may have been your whole case. Not good. You don't have to practice what you're going to do, but have it clear and concise. One of the things we're going to do here at HAR is to come up with a 3-hour course. We have it approved. We haven't come up with dates yet. Specifically targeted to real estate agents, both residential, and I'll probably do one for commercial separate because it's a different animal. Because there you're getting into industrial property, you're getting into office buildings, things like that, and also renditions. That is not something a residential realtor ever gets involved with. So we'll do residential and then we'll do the commercial one. But it's a 3-hour course. It's going to be some of this stuff that I just went over as a teaser, okay? Because, if you don't know where this is all coming from, how can you know how to handle it? And then we're going to actually ask the participants to come in, bring their evidence package with them on their laptop, and we're going to help them prepare a presentation so that they have a go-by and then can sit down with their clients and really help them manage it with a consistent way. Being an engineer, I have to have a process, and this is the process I've come up with. It works for me. You can tailor yours however you want, and you have to tailor it to the client. I have one client that's 101 years old, and she actually goes to the protest with me, and they love it. They give her every penny. Okay, it's absolutely amazing. And we all have, her mind is sharp, and she's got some physical impairments finally. And it's one of those things where we just have a great time at the informal. We never get to a formal. It's one of those deals. Okay, so that's about what's coming up. We don't have dates. We will probably today have 1 or 2 dates out there. I'm not going to have probably more than 20 people in the class because in 3 hours we're not going to be able to do what we're going to need to do to get people properly prepared. And it's not going to be a marketing thing for me. I'm not looking for any more business. I've got more than I can say grace over right now. But it's one of those things where we want to be available as a resource to you to help your clients. It's a great marketing tool for you. Every year you ought to be pulling up every property, making sure you see what's going on. You can see what it's valued at last year, what it's going to be valued at once the notices are put out for this year. You can call them up and say, hey, I've checked your property taxes and it looks like there may be something I can do to help you. I can probably help you, or no, you've got a unique problem and something like that, and maybe I can get you to somebody that does this for a living, and there are multiple tax agents out there to help people with their problems. So anyhow, let's get out of that. And I'm going to ask Marilyn to go ahead and figure out. Let's look at some of the questions, Marilyn.
Take just a moment for us to read through things. Do you see anything here?
Un momento.
I can't read those. Let's see. Are these questions?
No, that's when we were trying to get started.
So keep scrolling down here. Oops.
Oops.
Sorry.
My technical assistant here is helping us.
Please stand by. There we
Okay, here. Does ARB use any reference other than HAR for comps? They don't use HAR for comps. They're not allowed to have access. Since we are a non-reporting state, they cannot have direct access. Now, one of the things they will ask you, is the house for sale on the market, or has it been on the market within X amount of time? And I forget exactly what that is. I think it's within the last year. Okay. If it has been, then they can go online on the public side and look. But they only see the public. They don't see the solds. That was a big problem. When I went on the board, they knew I was a realtor. First thing they said, can we get access to HAR? So I came over and talked to Bob Hale, and Bob says, no, they can't. And we talked to the attorney. But here's what we can do. We won't block them anymore. They were blocking HCAT from going in even the public side because of their IP addresses. That wasn't right. So they have access to if your property's online. So guess what? If they value at 1.7 million, your house is on the market for 1.7 million, and you're asking 1.2, I don't think you have a very good case. Okay, so let's see another question. Will you be able to obtain a transcript of the webinar? Yes, I'm being told. I usually end up on the cutting floor, but that's okay. I guess I won't today. Information we receive, a copy of the training and the PDF video. Come to class, and we'll give you more detailed stuff. Value to apply to economic factors for land. Okay, Gladys, you asked this question. Economic factors are a unique thing. Okay, an example, River Oaks. Those properties that back up to San Felipe have a 0.8 factor on. There's a property that is 2 houses off of San Felipe by the elementary school. It has a 0.65 factor because not only do you have the 0.8 of the traffic, you've got the school traffic waiting for school backing up in front of their house twice a day. Okay, so they get, now you go to the other side of San Felipe, south of there, they don't have any factors. Nobody's complained. So again, it's hit or miss, very intermittent. Flood properties. I actually found a flood property. I picked up a new client yesterday. Very interesting gentleman. He has a house that has a 0 factor on over half of his land. I mean, there's no value on it. I've never seen it before. So that's going to be a point of discussion tomorrow afternoon because some of this property, and here's something you may or may not be aware of. Back in the 50s, there was a lawsuit brought by Terry Hershey, and she sued the county, the flood control, and the city to make sure that Buffalo Bayou from Shepherd Bridge out to Beltway 8 is not controlled by Harris County Flood Control. That is all private land in the bayou. That's why we had such a flooding, because the bayou was never maintained. It's private property. So here we have these owners paying a 0.1 factor on land that they can't even swim in. Okay? This is all the stuff that I need to work with. And again, my relationship with the management of HCAD helps me get in there and bring these things to their attention. It may take 2 years to fix it, but we'll get it fixed, and it'll be fixed as fair. Every property, the land portion of it should be well known. There's enough land sales out there. What's an interesting factor is 85% of the properties sold in River Oaks in the past 2 years have been torn down. So you know land values. But how they're properly applied, that along the bayou, other issues, it's a challenge. Galveston, I don't go there. Somebody asked about Galveston. No, I had a property down on Tiki Island for a couple of years, a couple different properties. It is a unique place. The tax assessor collector has been there since God was young, and she is quite an interesting woman. And it's one of those things where she is also the property tax assessor, tax collector, assessor, all wrapped into one. And they have their hands full with refineries. That's their biggest problem. That's their biggest moneymaker. And then after Ike and Rita and things like that, I mean, they've had a lot of problems. How do we pull equity comps? Okay. The way I pull equity comps is I go into HCAD or Montgomery or Fort Bend and start looking at land around there. And I'll show you something here on HCAD, which happened on my watch. And it is the best thing since sliced bread to help you as a realtor in your normal business, let alone protest. So we'll get to that soon. I want to take 2 more questions here. Okay, improvements such as pools, outdoor kitchens. What would you say that rental, oh no, well, yeah, improvements such as pools and outdoor kitchens. Well, pools are interesting. As you well know, a pool's not worth much. You put one in, and one of our great appraisers told me once a little pool story. Guy was building a house, and he was going to put a pool in, but he didn't know what to do with all the dirt. So he went to his neighbor, and he said, well, I got all this dirt. Why don't you ask your contractor if there's something that he might want to use it for? He came back a day later and says, we'll take it. He was filling his pool in. So anyhow, what's a pool worth? Who knows? But usually pools, decking, pool equipment are one of the things that I bring up. Cracks in pools. It's amazing how people just don't maintain their pools, and that's a major problem on the resale. Inspector will pick up on that. That's what I go by primarily. What will an inspector say that is poor about this property? Roof leaks, windows, double pane windows. You go on har.com and look at the sales, and I'm going to say 90% of the sales in Memorial and Montrose and the Heights and stuff like that, new double pane windows. Here's something that you don't know. I can tell you that unless you're a contractor. If you spend more than 50% on remodeling a house, more than the appraised value, not the HCAT appraised value, but say you had $300,000 for the improvement and you're spending $155,000, you have to bring the entire house up to today's code. That's windows, air conditioning, heat, electrical, plumbing. People don't know that. And I tell you, the ARB doesn't know it, but I point it out all the time. So there's a lot of things out there that can help you. Okay, I want to, Marilyn, if you can help me get on to hcad.org. We got 10 minutes. Good. Okay, now I'm going to show you something here. I'm going to go in and I'm going to, we'll do the map, Worth maps, a little different. Interactive map. There are very few of you that know this exists. You're used to, with each property, it tells you the map segment and you pick that up and you can see houses, a couple houses around. Let's go into an address. We'll just go and we'll just say what, Ashland. See if, well, it's not cooperating its way. You can put the address in, I'll put my home address in. I know that exists. Okay, that's my house. It is there, just, it's all land. I mentioned that. Okay, now interactive map. So there's my house, and I want to check the value on this house right here. See what's going on. I can go in and I can pull up the information. And I can look at land value, I can look at improvement value, and I can look at the difference. Now remember, this one's capped, okay? That's the interesting thing about it. So any dollar they save on that house makes them real money. It's when, and I'd like to find one that's not capped, but I don't have my addresses memorized off the top of my head, unfortunately. So that's that. And you can go all over the place and see what's going on. And I think I mentioned about the 0.8 factor on Kirby. See if this one has a 0.8 factor on Kirby. No, they're really messed over. Oh, that's still in Brentwood. Oh, that's my neighbor at the very end of Brentwood. Okay, I can see why she's getting, her house is on the market, by the way. I want to come over here to Kirby. Now I'll show you a factor. That one actually has a 0.6 factor on it. So you see what it does. The land is $130, but when you put the factor on adjustment, it's down to $78. That's a big difference in land. And then the improvement, when you look at this is the public side. Anybody, you can go check anybody's. You can see it's an average condition. By the way, this is one of the most important things on your property or anybody's property. If this isn't right, say you have one that is, they say very good, but it's average. You got to get this changed. And you can do that during the informal. Forget about it at the formal. Everybody's eyes glaze over. They don't even want to talk to you about it. Because every sales comp and every equity comp should be the same as yours. So if you don't fix yours, you're done for. You also look over here under building areas. You got to make sure they're correct. Only air-conditioned space should be taxed, except for high-rises. The balconies are taxable areas, the same as the square footage of the house. Okay, a lot of people, when you represent people doing high rises, they don't understand that, and then they get their tax bill and they say, what? It's 15% higher than I anticipated. Well, that's why. So that's that. Where's my other stuff here? So that interactive map, go play with it. I think you'll find it to be a very useful tool. Now I want to go back to my, there, okay. Okay, here's the presentation I use, and this is one that I've used this year. And okay, what I do is I give them a summary of what I'm going to tell them about. It's like everybody else. You tell them 3 times. You tell them once, you tell them again, and the 3rd time it may take. Okay, so I give them a summary there, and then I do the sales analysis. So I say review the 5 sales comps, indicate the 2 are good comparables based on proper land factors. There's my 0.8 and 0.9 for that I was trying to complain about. Eliminate number one. It's elimination of number 1 is appropriate. All the remaining ones are 155 a square foot. Mine's at 174. They gave me 155 out of this. They wouldn't change the land because that's the one I'm going in and talk to them about. But I go through each of the comps, and then I give them a copy of the sheet that we just saw on the public side with the HAR information somewhat redacted on the back. Don't give them sales information. And then I go into the subject property, tell them about it. And then I go into the repair analysis. Okay, as a professional engineer, I can do this 2 ways. I can do it. I have a contractor that allows me to use his contractor information. He knows I generally know what I'm talking about. Generally, I say. And so I can fill out his contract bid and sign for him, or I can do it as a professional engineer. Total repairs, $83,000. So that helped me get my 155 easily. Equity analysis. And then I go through the summary again, and then I do the math for them, just in case their calculator breaks down. So I match my owner's opinion up there, I submit it, and then I seal it with my professional engineering stamp. Okay, so that's that one. Now how do I get out of this? Back into the, close it, okay. And we're almost out of time here. We got a couple minutes left. I want to show you my sales. This is a chart that I came up with for sales. Subject property, you always go here. Market value, land in square foot, the size of the land, the improvement, dollars per square foot that they have, increase from 18 to 19 for HCAD. Sales price, well, it didn't sell. When was it remodeled? Partially remodeled in 2015. Okay. Now I look at these other ones here. This is a dental office. So this is always interesting. Here's the sales price. There's the dollars per square. Look what the market value is on HCAD. This one I really like, the one on East Tex. It's sold for $3.2 million, but they only have it on HCAD rolls at 1.7. I still have to do the ARB on this one. I didn't get anywhere in the informal. They were just, but look at the land. I mean, I have one commercial, and then we're about ready to sign off, where we go ahead and have a place out in Baytown, and one of the comps is in Clear Lake. One of the comps is in out 290 on Telge Road. Now, they threw their hands up on that one, and they said, well, none of these comps work. But that's why you got to go in and show them their evidence doesn't work. Remember, the person who, very seldom, I've only had this in 2 cases, where the person that is opposite you knows the property. In both cases, it was good. Okay, they actually knew the property and had worked it up. Okay, so the only other thing I'm going to leave you with is, if you and the appraiser agree, it becomes harmony. Okay? And I actually was told by a board the other day, I was chatting to one of the board, which I'm not supposed to do, board members. He said they had 9 harmonies in one day. He says, I've never seen anything like it. I've had 1 so far this year. But anyhow, that's it. We're signing off. Yeah, I guess we're going to see what questions we have. Oops.
Just remind them we did record it and they will all receive a copy of the recording.
Okay, question, training, thank you. Does Fort Bend have an interactive map? Yes, they do, but it's nothing like the one on HCAD. You try it out. I think you'll find the one on HCAD is useful. I love the one about the sinkhole. Mary Beth, get in touch with Marilyn and she'll give you my address. I'm interested about sinkholes. I'd love to talk to you about that one.
I'll follow up with you to get your information.
Okay. I bought my house and it said it had a pool. I told HCAD, if I do, someone took it. Take pictures. Take pictures. Okay. That's a hoot. I've had one time, I'll sign off after this, I had one person that bought a house last year. It had double pane windows. It had granite countertops. It had stainless steel appliances. It had a pool that was redone. And her property value went up, and she had the largest house on the block. And her property value was way above everybody else's. I said, well, what did you pay for it? She paid $25,000 more than what they had it valued at. So as I told her, keep quiet. That's it. So that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed this. We look forward to seeing you sign up for the class if that makes sense for you. But remember, this is a marketing value that you can bring to your clients. And you can help yourself too on your own protest. Have a great one.